Hodgson put him on his back. Thurston, right foot kick, down the ground, into the in goal almost. Hodgson cuts it off. Hodgson taken by Norton. He took him late. Marshall skips away. Marshall's still going. Marshall's got Richards coming up outside. Now inside. Richards pursued. He pushes Johnson away.
Good evening, everybody. Here we are, Tuesday, 13th of February, 2024, back for another episode of the Tiger Town podcast, the third for the year. I'm Zac. He's Toby over there in the corner, the handsome-looking man. Oh, sorry, mate. No, looking at the screen, that was actually me. How are you, Toby? You good, mate, are you?
Oh, mate, always starting off with the jokes, aren't you? Always starting off with the jokes. Always.
I've got to do my best, mate. How are you going?
Yeah, good, mate. Yeah, good. Just busy as always. I'm sure everyone's busy and, things going on left, right and centre, and I'm no different. What about yourself?
Exactly the same. February's just one of those months, mate, isn't it, where you're back in the rhythm and, everything starts to sort of catch up to you a little bit, and you have those few moments where it's, the year's back and started again. You beauty.
Yeah, it's like that. And then, it's a big couple of months coming up for us, a lot of events and a lot of, social interactions. So it's not going to slow down anytime soon.
No, mate, busy life. Better than being bored, though, eh?
Oh, bloody oath. Who wants to be bored? Who wants to go stale? It's annoying.
Oh, I say only boring people get bored.
That's right.
Yeah. And neither you or I are boring, my friend.
All really depends on who you're talking to, but I appreciate the comment.
Yeah, well, white lie here and there never hurt anybody.
Our listeners don't find us boring, so that's good to know. But I'm sure the people that don't particularly care too much about the West Tigers wouldn't really fancy us the way we talk, so...
Highly probable.
They don't have to listen to us.
I'm a little bit excited this weekend. Would you like to know why?
I don't know. Is the swell pretty good?
I don't know what's going on with the swell, mate. 2 young kids. We don't have time to go surfing. No, I'm excited because there's a little bit of football on the horizon, my friend.
Mate, we'll talk about the team list, we'll talk about everything, but when I saw that team list come up, I think I was driving at the time, I think I pulled over to have a look. So, you know what? I am ecstatic. Absolutely ecstatic.
We're nearly there. And I'd love to start talking about it, but there's a problem.
What's that?
I haven't plugged our sponsor, mate.
Oh, you have not? No.
Best on Ground Digital. Best on Ground Digital, one of me best. Best on Ground Digital are the marketing agency that look after the little guys. They've come on board in the off-season. We talk about them. We mention them. Start of every show, end of every show. Legends, okay? bestongrounddigital.com. The best in the business. You can't go wrong with Best on Ground Digital. Mate, there we go. Now we can start talking footy.
Oh, mate.
Okay?
Mate, look, they'll be happy you did that. And, they're good blokes, so we're always going to get a bit of luck.
We never would have heard the end of it. You mean you put football before our plug? Gentlemen, please.
Good thing they're a bit of West Tigers fan themselves, so I think they'll appreciate, regardless of what we talk about, if we talk a little bit about the West Tigers as well. Absolutely.
Hey, Warriors trial game, pre-season challenge, because anybody cares about that, but it is a trial game. We play on Sunday over there, mate. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? We're going to start breaking down the side. We've got a squad there that we can talk about. A few of the combinations.
We've got a lot of stuff.
Yeah, there's a bit coming. What are you excited to see? I guess just to wrap it up in a single dot point there, or is there too many to mention?
To be honest, just the run-on side. I did not expect that to be named. If I'm being honest, I thought it was. I thought it was going to be run-of-the-mill, especially the first trial. Obviously, like you said, we're going to talk a little bit more in depth, but I didn't expect such high-profile names to be, named, and to basically have the side that we have against the side that the Warriors have named. It would be very, very embarrassing if we didn't win.
You don't rate the side the Warriors have named?
I rate probably one player in that, or maybe two players in that team that they've named. and that's obviously the return of RTS in a Warriors jersey, and Luke Metcalf. I rate him. So that's the rest. I don't even know half of them.
Okay. I had to read through their list after you mentioned that earlier today, and I was actually surprised because there was actually a few more in there than I thought had been named based upon what you said, but that's all right. You're entitled to your incorrect opinion. Mate, I might just... Oh,
Yeah, nah.
Sometimes the in the head thing slips out.
You're a douche.
I'm okay with it. Mate, I might just run through the side/squad that's been named by Benji, and we can say that, which is nice to say for the first time. Fullback, Jareen Buller. Our wingers are Charlie Staines and Junior Tupou. In the centres, we've got Declan Casey, who came out of the Bulldogs system on a train and trial, so not eligible for round one if he does put a good performance in. And number 3 is one of our most recent development players, Solomona Fa'atape, out of East Tigers. You remember the hilarious mole articles, plural, over the last week where he's tried to implicate Shane Richardson in some sort of nepotism from his sons.
The mole. Buzz has tried to do it as well.
Have they both? Maybe they're in cahoots. Who knows? Trying to bring us down from the outside. Can't help themselves.
The dinosaurs just trying to keep themselves relevant.
Are they what? Awful journalists. Anyway, back to the side, because that's far more enjoyable than Tony Adams or Phil Rothfield, isn't it? Jaden Sullivan, Bud Sullivan at 6, gets his first start in a jersey. There's quite a few, I might add, that are getting their first start in a West Tigers jersey, with Aiden Caesar at halfback. Props are, surprisingly, our starting front row. So we've got Stefano Utui Ikamanu at 8, Dave Clemmer at 10. We've got Appy at hooker. Back rowers are Papali'i and AJ Asu Kapoa. And then we've got Seyfarth at 13 as the lock to start the game. Now, obviously,
that
trials.
was something that you mentioned last week too, that there was a chance that Seyfarth was going to get that starting role. So maybe this is his chance to impress.
Most definitely his opportunity, or an opportunity to let the coaches see in game situation what he can offer, for sure, mate. Yeah, definitely. So then we've got obviously an extended squad. Unlimited interchange is my understanding, as trials normally are. And generally speaking, I dare say, mate, I dare say you probably agree also that we will probably see that starting 13 through the first half, and then a few changes, obviously, in that first half. But then the second half, I dare say, we'll probably see an entirely a different eclectic mix of all sorts of players, whether they're development, whether they're top 30, whether they're flag SG ball, a few New South Wales Cup, a couple of trainer trialists in there in the second half. So allow me to finish that squad. I know I am waffling, sorry. 14 is Galvin, who we know and we'll talk about later in this show and have spoken a fair bit about already. Josh Folletti, Fanua Pole, Semwela Fainu, Kit Leilali'i, Sione Fainu, Jake Simpkin, Talon De Silva, Heath Mason, Alex Lobb, Tony Sukar, and Nav Willett, who we've spoken a little bit about as well, who just played in his second SG Ball game on the weekend for the West Magpies. So, mate, sorry. I cut off a few names at the bottom. We've got Nick Luitoso, who is a training trialist as well, so ineligible for round one. Ruben Porter, ditto, and Sione Vaihu, who was playing a bit of New South Wales Cup last year. So he may be a New South Wales Cup contract. That's a big list. So 28 players in that squad. Obviously, Benji Marshall as the coach, which is nice to read for the first time. A lot to talk about. Should we do it in chunks, my friend?
Yes, I think we don't want to, as you like to say, waffle on for too long. So maybe we'll do it in chunks to keep people, I guess, engaged.
So our 1 to 5, surprisingly in some ways, is 60% what we might think you and I might expect to line up in round 2, that being Buller, Tupou and Staines on the wings.
Yeah, it's very hard to usurp any of those. Obviously, if our listeners were listening to our last pod, I did have Alex Lobb as my other winger, but that was if I had the choice to pick anyone, that's who I would pick. But we were pretty confident they would probably go with Tupou. So yeah, though 1, 2, and 5, I'm very unlikely that unless knock on wood, no injuries happen. Very likely that'll be the same positions come round 2.
Sorry, mate. You might have to knock on wood again. I don't think they heard you in fucking Perth. It's it. You just knock your house down?
Mate. We are talking about injuries to the West Tigers. I'll fucking go outside and knock on a tree if I have to.
Hey, mea culpa. My bad. All right, fair enough. Go all lumberjack if you got him, my friend. Apologies. Back on track. Those starting centres on Sunday, Fa'atape and Declan Casey, obviously newcomers to the squad, one being development in Fa'atape and Declan Casey being a trained trialist out of the Bulldogs, as we mentioned earlier. We've spoken a bit about Fa'atape last week when we went through some of our depth charts. It will be interesting to see him get a run, quite a decent attacking weapon.
I was just funny that I don't know if a lot of people do this, but I was just on YouTube the other day, just going through recommended videos because I was bored, and it had the highlights of Fa'atape from last year. So I'll watch them again because I've already watched them when we signed him to see what he was like. And yeah, like you said, he's very much an attacking weapon. He's very strong upper body. Lacks a little bit in defense. So it'll be interesting to see. Like, I haven't actually seen him play a full game. I didn't watch the Queensland Cup Grand Final, but it'll be interesting to see how he actually lines up in defence, how he defends with his inside and outside men. So I'm actually very keen to see that because we've all seen his attack. I just want to see his defence.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, if that's a key weakness that's been identified or is a common knowledge with him, then that'll be the thing that the coaching staff would be zeroing in on, you would think.
You'd think so, yeah.
Declan Casey, mate, you got much info on Declan Casey? Seen him play much?
None. I've not seen him play a single game in any way, shape, or form. So I'm keen to see. There's a lot of talk about him. When we signed him, I thought it was just going to be, a New South Wales filler, but there's actually been a lot of hype around him when he was younger. So very keen to see him. I might have to try to see if I can find some highlights of him on YouTube to have a bit more of a look at him. But keen to see what he can bring. I thought he was a fullback.
Winger.
That's my understanding. So winger, fullback. But yeah, moving into the centres, it'll be interesting to see how he goes.
It will be interesting. And he is listed on zero tackle as a fullback. He's also quite a tall fella. He's, to be perfectly frank, he's the exact dimensions of me. He's 189 centimetres and 92 kilos. So apparently that makes an NRL winger these days.
Right.
For those of you
I've
playing
got the
at home.
dimensions of Preston Lacey, 5'2" and stocky as shit.
Who's that?
I've got the dimensions of Preston Lacey. Anyone that doesn't remember who Preston Lacey is, go Google him. Very, very, very short hooker from probably mid-2000s.
Yep. Brad Drew.
Brad Drew.
Another one for you. Yeah. Vertically challenged.
Yeah.
Toby's 4'8" for those wondering at home.
It's all right. Well, I make up for it in width.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. You're average height in width. Anyway, tangents. Yeah, mate. So he is picked in the centres. It raised my eyebrows too. The fact that he's listed at fullback. Obviously, you would expect a fullback to have a high is probably the wrong word. A bit of a broader skill set generally than specialist wingers. I think that his 6 games for the Doggies, who he came from, I think all of them were on the wing, if I'm not mistaken, for a couple of tries.
Has he played NRL before, or is it all New South Wales?
He's played 6 first grade games.
6 first grade games.
Yeah, 6 first grade games. They came over the last couple of seasons, and he scored a couple of tries. Like I said, from what I can tell, I've read a few of his bios, but as a fringe NRL player, there's obviously not a great deal of information on him. But he is listed as a versatile player somewhat. Several different bios have him as fullback, centre and winger. So maybe it was just an opportunity, got him a start on the wing. So again, if he's an outside back and he's showing that versatility, that's going to bode well in our squad, I think, long term, because as we've spoken about quite a bit before, we're in many ways short in all areas of the backs, not only in depth but in star power.
Sorry, excuse me. Yes, 100%. And, it's something that we both have mentioned that we're definitely building on that. I guess that area in terms of our squad, our outside backs is definitely seems to have been a focus over the last year and a half, trying to, I guess, bolster that stock. But yeah, it's interesting that he's getting a start over other people, if I'm being honest. I thought, those type of players are generally, when it comes to a trial, your number 20s and 21s and 22s, they're not really the ones that come on to start the game. They're the ones that kind of finish it just to show the coaches what they can do. So maybe Benji sees something in him that could potentially make him a bolter. Who knows? Because there's a couple of people that haven't been named in terms of the centres. Obviously Olam is still coming back from injury. He's not 100% yet. I thought Naden was fully fit. I could be wrong. He wasn't named in the All-Stars either. So it is interesting.
Yeah, there is a few notable admissions. We might get to them a little bit later because there is a few, and there's a couple of reasons that have been listed around as well, which makes sense. The glaring one, before I forget, is Latu obviously serving that suspension, which is great because it does make him eligible. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words a bit this evening. Eligible for selection in our first game in round 2, which is good. So that was confirmed in the off-season. So he will be available for the second trial, which is good. And here I go coming down the line of talking about something I said we're going to talk about later. Back to the team list.
I think it's going to be one of those nights, mate. I think it's going to be one of those nights.
I think it is, mate. Yeah, exactly right. We can't be on the razor's edge every single night. So, mate, our halves. So, Bud Sullivan and Aiden Caesar as the starting halves. Again, we've spoken a fair bit about what each of those two bring. What do you expect against the Warriors? What are you hoping to see? What do you expect to see out of those two?
Cohesion is a big one. I'd
between
love to
each
see
other
cohesion.
or between just across the board?
In general, every quality half pairing, they know what they need to do back off the back of what the other half is doing. I remember there was back in 05, for any West Tigers fan, you probably watched the 05 season at least 100 times. And there was a commentator, I can't remember, it might have been Warren Ryan or someone like that, said when your half runs, actually it was probably Gould, if I'm being honest. If your half runs, your 5/8 backs him up in terms of takes the next run, because they just understand that the half is running for a reason. He sees a hole, so the 5/8 tries to find something close to that as well. So I like to see a little bit of cohesion, a little bit of sort of not so much understanding, but like sort of just that connection between the two. But I think if we're talking about the individual performances as well, I'd like to see a traditional half 5/8 combination, not because we know that Bud's, could play halfback as well. I'd like to see Caesar be that dominant talker, really understand that he's the one that directs it, very much to what I said a couple of years ago on the pod that Jackson Hastings does quite well. The big talker, the director, telling people where to go. Sullivan plays his natural ability in terms of finding the hole, putting people through holes, things like that. I think that's what I'm really keen to see.
Yep. I agree. I think that Caesar's going to be basically told to be the communicator and the general, as it were, to use a often overused phrase in rugby league. But basically that essentially means, and this is not news to anybody, that they are doing a lot of barking and a lot of pointing, a lot of positioning of the people around them, moving the chess pieces around, and virtually playing in a dinner suit other than in defence. So if he can kick us around the field and move us around the field, I think that's his job done. And I think Bud's an interesting one. I don't know which way it's going to go. I don't know whether Benji and he have looked to get back to his roots a little bit when he was more of that organising halfback. Yes, he has a very strong running game, but people have mistaken his performance against us for the Dragons last year, where he tore us to shreds with his running game, as to meaning that he is a run-first player. I don't believe Jaden is a run-first player. I've watched a lot of his junior stuff in retrospect, and he loves to go and play at the line. He is, it's not the best comparison, but I was going to say someone who loved to do it, whether successfully or not, most likely not, but did early in his career was Brooksy. He loves approaching the line and playing at the line. So a lot of short balls, particularly when he had a decent centre or second rower. And I'm talking about Rowdy primarily there. Now, Bud doesn't tend to go the single option all the time, from what I've seen, but he does tend to engage that line a lot. And I think being a strong runner of the football and a bit of a slippery sort of character in how he moves, I think that makes him a running threat as well, which is probably why he's been successful in the junior grades with that type of engage first approach. Obviously, there's a variety of ways that 5'8" or halfbacks can approach the game. So yeah, back to what I was saying before. Is he and he and Benji gotten back to that sort of playmaker role as the second half? Or is it simply a case of, like you were saying, just, mate, back your instincts, play what you see, run first, go?
Yeah.
More of that unstructured loose cannon style of a 5'8", not unlike a Benji, not unlike a Cameron Munster, that type of player. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I think they're going to be very different, which is a good thing, I think.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it is a good thing. Do you think that they might go left and rights, or do you think they'll both wander? Because I'm not a fan personally of left and rights. I think that's because what you're saying there is if Benji has had a word to Bud and he's like, I want you to go back to taking the line, really drawing in the defender to have a really strong back row run through that line that hole that you've created, or out the back to your centre to create the overlap, whatever have you. But that sounds a little bit more like potentially he'll go down the route of having a left half and a right half, which, like I said, personally, I'm not a fan of. I think that.
So are you asking me if I think that's what they'll do?
Potential. Oh, yeah. Do you think it's a possibility with that mindset of what you said then?
Yeah, I 100% think that's what they're going to do, at least start the year. I don't agree with it. I'm a pretty liberal structure type of person when it comes to attacking structures. I far prefer play both sides, and I far prefer working full field. I just think it's more effective in the modern game. But anyway, it's beside the point. I think from what the language I've heard out of the club a little bit, not personally, but just through the media and what the way that they've spoken, some players and Benji and trying to read between some of the lines, I think they're going to almost go the opposite of what Sheensy did last year and play an uber conservative beginning to the year. And I think that starts with trials. As you alluded to before, connections is everything. And I think Benji has that at the top of his list. And so I think being able to execute a simple game plan extremely effectively, where those combinations are simple but extremely efficient, is something that we're going to see. That's my prediction to how the Tigers are going to play to start the year. It doesn't mean that we won't play expansive football, but I think it might be more so down to working territory first, and I think we might see us be a side that goes wide later in the game and allows the game to naturally open rather than try to force it open with set plays or fanciness or whatever else, or risk-taking early.
You'll think they'll do quite a bit of, 3 through the middle spread when it comes to it, not trying to push the cuff, so to speak.
Yeah, I think personally they know we've got a decent forward pack, if not the best forward pack in the league or a top 4, then at least a decent forward pack. I think they're going to work territory. I think they're going to turn them around a lot and try and get on top in a traditional sense. And I think they might, so like I was saying before, I think they might play the narrative out in the game, meaning rather than try to can open the defence early through risk taking, through overly expensive football early, that sort of thing, or through a bit of individual brilliance, they'll more grind the game out, be a wall in defence, make very few mistakes, give away few penalties, turn the team around, kick early, and allow the game and fatigue to sort of bring its way in. Obviously, trials are a bit different, man, right? Because of interchange, unlimited interchange, and everyone getting less minutes. But I think in the start of the season, that's what they will do, because at the very least, that's the plus side to that, or one of the plus sides to that, is that it's low risk. It's low risk, high reward, because the reward is a victory, and low risk is if you're playing that high percentage football for the first half of the game, first 50, 55 minutes of a game, every game consistently, and that's a focus of yours, it's hard for teams to put 40 on you. Like, unless you're trash. And in the past, we have been trash, but we also haven't had that high percentage football focus, I don't believe. And I know that, like, I'm really presenting a superficial sort of explanation of what I mean, but, you know, unless we want this to be a 7-hour podcast, well, just...
No, it makes sense. It makes sense because you and I have watched a lot of games together, quite a lot. And there's one thing that you probably repeat every single game is the term that's so low percentage. You always say it at least once, maybe even a couple of times. You get very frustrated by that. So, you know, it does make sense, you know, those, but thinking of that too, you know, if you say that we play those high percentage plays for 50, 60 minutes and we have done what we what we set out to do in terms of potentially putting points on, but not getting stupid amount of points put against us, we have essentially earned the right to play that low percentage plays. You don't come out of the bat playing it. And that's something that really, really good teams do. And that was something that we thought was going to happen years ago when, you know, the likes of even Jason Taylor coming on board, you know, he came from the Roosters system. We thought he was going to bring that. Didn't eventuate because, you know, things didn't align. You know, when Ivan came on board and then jumped on the bus, you know, we thought that was going to happen. So, you know, there's been times when we thought that was going to happen. Then even most recently, Madge was probably we thought Madge was going to bring that as well. But to each of their credits, you know, Jason Taylor probably started off on the wrong foot straight away, you know, getting on the bad side of probably one of our most influential players in Robbie, which kind of put everyone off. Then Ivan decided to pull up stumps and go win 3 grand finals. And then Madge probably didn't have the squad to do it.
Tried his heart out, but he was the right man for the right time, but he was the broom.
Yeah. He's the one that made the cleans that needed to be happened.
Yeah.
So it's funny, like you really think about it. I'm going on a tangent here. We'll get back to the team in a second. But with everything that happened from Madge starting to Madge getting the boot, all of it has led to us having probably the best administration we have had ever, and some of the best prospects we've had since Brooks, Moses, Tedesco, and Woods came through. And like people will sit there and like, especially my brother who does not like Madge in any way, shape, or form, will sit there and say that
as a coach.
As a coach, yeah. So he's met him a couple of times. We all have, and he's a really nice guy. But as a coach, he didn't like the way it was.
Madge is a fantastic fella.
Yeah. Digress, but he kind of was the thing we needed at that point in time to make the changes that we needed, because he had the full backing. He knew what we needed. He just wanted to see it all the way through. We just didn't have the time and the patience for that to happen. So, but yes, let's get back to the team list again. Tangents. That's what we do here,
mate. That's a Hall of Famer, that one.
I've got no idea where you were. Can't remember how we started that conversation.
We're talking about structures, and we're talking about percentages and how we think the halves might play, how Benji might have the halves in the team playing.
Okay. So it wasn't that much of a tangent. It wasn't really that bad.
That's right, mate. Just because you got me here to translate for you.
Appreciate it.
Front row stock, Steph, Appy, and Clemmer. Personally, I'm going to lead off on this one. I don't expect those boys to play many minutes. I think it's just going to be to get the cobwebs out. I think they just want to see. I think, honestly, it's combinations only. I think they're going to throw. I reckon Bud might play a while, if not the whole game. But I think Caesar, Coruscant, Clem, and probably Steph even as well. I would be surprised if they play much more than 20 minutes. And I think they just want to see them start the game. Let's see how we get rolling. How in sync are we when we get on the field? What are we noticing is missing that wasn't missing at training? What do we need to tweak up for the next trial, etc.? What do you think?
I don't disagree with you, but the time limit is what I do disagree with. I think they will get obviously minimal minutes. They won't play a full game, but I think they will play a full half. The reason I say that is because I mentioned this in our chat before we started was my thought process of why the team is, and we both agree it's quite a strong team for a trial. My thought process of why that is because we do have that bye in round one, which really only gives us 2 games to try to get a little bit of synergy happening. Because by the time we play round 2, every team has played 1 game and they have kind of got into the groove, so to speak, a little bit. Well, we don't have that option. So I think they'll play a little bit more than you expect, mainly to try to get that, like you said, synergy happening, try to get that those combinations working, but also because of the lack of game time that we have coming up to round 2. So,
yeah, fair enough. There's quite a few players, obviously, outside of the 13. We've got 28 players listed, so there's 15 other players to get a run. And if you look at your options there, you've got Simpkin and TDS both named. In terms of your middles there, you've got Kit that plays in the middle, Sione Fainu plays in the middle. I keep on going down. I think Porter and Nick Luitoso, I think they're both props. I think Luitoso might be an edge, though. So, you've got plenty of people there, or plenty of players, to be able to replace. And that's gliding over the likes of Samuela Fainu, Pole, and whatnot. So, yeah, there's a fair bit of game time need to be had, I think.
Yeah. No, I definitely, I don't disagree with that. But if you also look at the amount of teams, the amount that we have compared to a starting 13, it's almost, you'd almost take a full team from the bench and add, or you can take a full team from that bench and put it on the field. So it'd be interesting to see how they work that. I think the big thing there, we've talked about the lineup, we talk about, who's listed on the extended bench as well. The thing I did notice is, apart from, and we've spoke about why Ladu's not playing and things like that, but apart from Bud and Caesar, there's no real other half to test. So,
other than Galvin,
but Galvin is also 14, so it'd be interesting. Yeah, actually, I did forget about Galvin, if I'm being honest. So, yeah, no newspaper's done that this week.
No, we'll mention that in a sec. So back row is Papali'i. He's a mainstay. He'll be there round 2. And AJ Kapoa, obviously in for Bateman. Bateman's still recovering from off-season ankle surgery. He hasn't had the best run with injury since he arrived at us in some ways. We know what we get with Papali'i. Are you going to see him used any differently this year, do you think? Whether this trial or not?
I think so. I think
it was very quickly, what do we do? What did we do wrong with him last year, and how would you change it?
Didn't give him enough early ball. I think he showed he was a little bit
early
more
ball.
Well, early ball at the line. I think he's pretty damaging with his fens and things like that. He runs really good lines as well. I think. Sorry, yeah. Now that I'm saying it out loud, not early ball, quality ball at the line. Sorry.
We did say it's one of those episodes.
Oh, bloody oath. Look, we're both
Mercury in retrograde. What's going on?
I know. Both got 2 kids. We're both bugging. It happens. But we need to do this.
There's a new 5G tower. Something's happening. Are the poles flipped? What's going on?
I don't know. Quality ball at the line.
I'm in agreement with you. Before we start talking about the coaches in the 80s in a moment, I think we gave Hey, we can. Warren Ryan. I think we gave him too early ball last year, which is something that you generally give a Johnny Bateman type, that obviously the type of player who is awkward and whatnot, just out of focus there, my friend. And Papali'i, we saw him excel when he was at Parramatta from getting, that late ball, picks his lines quite well. He's quite stocky, built low to the ground. So as a whole runner, he's well suited for that, particularly in the attacking 20. And we just didn't particularly use him a whole lot for that, which is odd considering that, as we spoke about earlier, that was something that Luke Brooks, when he was at the peak of his powers, did quite well with the likes of Chrissy Lawrence and even Garner when the two were in form. We just didn't see it with Papali'i last year.
No, we didn't. And for whatever reason, it could have been the fact that there wasn't that trust there to begin with as well. Brooks was well known for pegging the ball at the line very, very hard, pretty consistently. And maybe there just wasn't that trust that probably he was going to take that. I think potentially also was the way that the side was coached last year probably didn't suit his playing style as well. I was very vocal of, I guess, the quality that Papali had brought, especially after his, off-season comments prior to coming across. I thought that, it seemed like he just didn't give a shit at the start. When you look back at it, a lot of it's not really his fault. A lot of it was just them not utilising him to his strengths. Yeah. But at the same time,
factors.
Yeah, at the same time, this is a year he needs to pull his finger out. And I think there's things that he can do to mitigate another poor showing, and he needs to make sure he's doing that. So,
yeah, he can't escape responsibility for his own season, and doesn't fall solely at the feet of Luke Brooks. But anyway, yeah,
no.
AJ Kapoa, the other second rower, we saw him make the transition from outside back to second rower last year, and then back again. Out of desperation at the back end of last season. Mate, in many ways, he hasn't had the best run, both in injury, form, popularity. He does have something, Kapoa, though.
He does, and that's the thing that kind of annoys me a little bit is, people bagging him a little bit. When the year prior, when he first came over, I think that was the year he first came over, maybe it was the year before that. Whenever he first came over, he was used on the wing, and he wasn't setting the world alight. Very much to, I guess, like Tupou was obviously better on the wing, but we were both in agreement that when Kapoa was shifted to the centres, that was his position. He was strong. He was running perfect lines. He was really ensuring that in a defense perspective, that was solid tight. As you always say, centre's very much the key position from a defensive standpoint. But then
he also struggled under the high ball when he played wing in the early days.
He did, yes. Yeah. And then last year, there was obviously, he's asked to bulk up, put some muscle on his frame, and then move out to the centres. Move out to the second row. And he played a couple of quite good games in second row, I felt, as well, before Bateman showed up. And then, obviously, they just kept switching him. I'm like, you've asked this guy who has never really played it this way, who has never had to defend as much as he has been in terms of the second row, to just shift back to where he was. It's not that easy. And then everyone was bagging him out, making these poor misses and things like that. He's holding an extra 8 or 9 kilos trying to be as quick and agile as he once was. That's going to happen.
Yeah, it will, mate. And look, it's hard to beat around the bush. He has been an underperformer. He did his ACL and then he came back from that ACL last year. And yeah, it's hard because he has played that bit part role too. And as you mentioned, when you are in the position that you can't play the same position for a variety of reasons, obviously you're not able to find that same rhythm and get used to the individual nuanced requirements of that position, whether it be centre, winger or second row. So if you promise to play a certain position and a change of position and you start to train yourself into learning the intricacies of that position, say second row the start of last year, and you then end up finding yourself on the pine playing 9 minutes at centre or on the wing because somebody gets injured, what hope have you got for development in yourself? So, yeah, I think that he's got a bit there. It'll be interesting to see. I liked him at times in second row early last year. I thought he put that size on. He had the right aggression. He ran the ball with a lot of purpose. He was in good positions. He doesn't run a bad line, Asu Kapoa. No. We just need an opportunity to see it. Jury's still out for me. I think there's a footballer in there. I think it is as much his own fault, concentration, whatnot, as it is the poor development for a variety of reasons that has happened to him that hasn't allowed him to kick on into that next echelon of decent footballer. But hopefully it's coming soon, mate. Alex Seyfarth at lock. What do you think?
Look, I've said this numerous times now in the fact that, Seyfarth was my biggest improver last year. He did a couple of very good things last year, especially like with the ball in hand. He's created that miracle pass. I think it was for Steph to get across the line. I can't remember exactly, but I know it was for another forward.
Right under the sticks?
Yeah, right under the sticks. And it was a great ball. Great ball.
Either Steph or Polly?
Yeah, it was one of the two. But it's just going to be interesting to see how Benji uses him at lock. Whether he's going to be like Alex 12 sort of mindset in tightening up that middle, because when he's not shooting out of the line to try to make a poor read, he can tighten up that middle quite well. He's got pretty good tackle efficiency, does tie the ball up quite well. Or is he going to be that linchpin? Is he going to be something that gets out to the backs when needed? I'm just with him. I'm just not sure. Like if you put someone like a Bateman at lock, you kind of know what you're getting. If you put someone like a Matamua at lock, you know what you're getting. And if you put someone like a Lauliti, you know what you're getting. With Seyfarth, you just don't understand, or you don't quite get where they're heading yet.
So when you say you know what you're getting, you can sort of understand the reasoning why and the style that
like
play in conjunction with
Matamua and Bateman. They're that link between with a Lauliti. They're just there for that aggression up the middle, very similar to the way we used Pole last year. So
like a third prop. I agree. You said all the right stuff in terms of what I was thinking too. High tackle efficiency. He'll act as a glue in a lot of ways, which will be nice in the middle. He's an F&I and F&M player. You'll never out effort Alex Seyfarth, which is obviously a great thing to have. It's just his effectiveness as well. Is he going to be able to provide enough impetus with his first contact in the middle? Is he going to... I don't have a doubt about his fitness level. I think that he's quite a fit bloke. So I don't have a problem about the workload per se. I know he can throw a decent pass and engage the line, but I don't know how refined that is yet. So as you said, there's a few things yet to be answered. It'll be interesting to see how they use them. Personally, I go way against the grain, and I'm really not a fan of the yo type of lock, but we can look at unpacking that in a discussion at a later date. It'll be. I just think it's a bit predictable. Is the long and short of it, but interesting to see how Seyfarth's used. Who do you see in that extended squad, or just anyone off the top of your head that you can remember? Who do you see sort of subbing in for him at lock there?
I'll have to pull up the squad myself because I can't remember who was there. There was quite a few. Probably Lauliti, if Pole's there.
So for me, it'd be a Lauliti, possibly a Sione Fainu, who we saw, I think, play a similar role last year in the trials, and we were both, I think, waxing pretty lyrical about his passing, not only his pass selection, but the execution of them. So I wonder if Sione's a bit of a sleeper. I've mentioned it from time to time. It will be interesting to see how that goes. And then obviously they can play Pole there if they need to. But do you think that's a likely scenario, or do you see Pole getting some time at prop?
I hope he gets some time at prop, because I think the experiment of him at lock, it wasn't a failure in any way, shape or form, but I don't think he was used as effectively as he could be used. I think there is no doubt, and the way that he runs, and if for anyone that doesn't know NFL or anything like that, he runs very much like a Marshawn Lynch. Very, very powerful in the legs, very good leg drive. Marshawn Lynch was coined beast mode essentially. And that's the way that Pole runs. And I think that is more effective from a front rower perspective than it is from a lock perspective. So I hope he gets more of a run at front row than he does at lock. I hope they don't go down that road again.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm just going to race through that second half of the squad, if you're happy for me to do so, just with their surnames. And we might just pull out a couple of key names that will not be new to you, and just maybe have a think about how they might be used. So we've got Galvin, Folletti, Pole, Samuela Fainu, Leilali'i, Sione Fainu, Simpkin De Silva, Heath Mason, Lob, Sukar, Willett, Louis Tose Porter, and Vaihu.
So Galvin, we're pretty confident he'll be used in the halves. That's basically, I can't really think they're going to put him anywhere else.
Yeah, he's a half at the moment.
Yeah,
definitely.
So
He's
Josh
only a
Felitti
half.
will.
He's 5'8".
Yeah, Felitti will be most likely subbing in for Declan Casey or
Fatape.
Fatape. Yeah.
Yep.
So obviously, Felitti will be in the centres. Like I mentioned, Pole, really hope they just use him as a prop, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's used as the lock as well. Samuela, look, I'm not against him being used as the lock as well, but I think he'll probably get used a little bit more in the back row. He'll probably sub in for Kapoa, I'd most likely say, because every game I've seen, Samuela's been on the right, and I think Kapoa's on the right. So, Kit, like we mentioned before, he will be, in my eyes, replacing Seyfarth if we go down the most logical route. But he is stocky, he is strong, probably could be in a pinch put in the front row as well. So, a lot of these forwards that are put on the list are very versatile. They could be used anywhere. And I think there's a big difference between what I think they should be used and how they're actually going to be used. I think I will be surprised. But, I think that based off what I've seen and based off last year's performances, I think it'd probably be a very silly decision to try to recreate what we have done in last year, considering what happened as a result. So,
yep.
Sione, probably front row. I think that's predominantly his role.
Sione Fainu.
Yeah.
Samuela's an interesting one. I expect to see Samuela in the 17, come round 2. So I think maybe he might be there to play a little bit of middle or a little bit of prop and a little bit of second row, because I agree. I think he's versatile there. I think at the moment he's being moulded into, but continuing his development as a second rower. But it'd be interesting to see how he kicks on. Another one who, by all reports, has had a great off-season.
Yeah. Everyone that has spoken about him has basically said he's slotted in straight away. From a culture perspective as well, really just melded with the boys, but he's one of the best trainers as well. You mentioned Seyfarth, you can't really ever fault his effort on effort, and that's apparently everything as well as training. He does the same thing. Samuel is probably on the same level. Really pushes himself, really tries to lead by example, and he's not even. Is he 20 yet?
19.
Yeah, he's just. It's incredible how much maturity he shows. But yeah, wouldn't be surprised with his size and frame either. Like you said, he'd be used at prop because he is quite a big bloke, big boy. He's a silly young'un.
Yeah, mate, he is. Yeah, absolutely. He's still got to fill out, I think, a fair bit. He looks like his frame's grown, but he hasn't thickened up, and so it'd be interesting to see how much he naturally puts on and sort of what weight he'll be playing at in, say, 2 or 3 years when he's still under contract, obviously being that 4-year contract to start. So, yeah, he's an interesting one to watch, definitely. Now, look,
I was just going to say he's another smoky for that lock position too that I didn't really think of. But if you have a look at his size from last year compared to this year, J.K. Simpkins put on a little bit of size, bit more stockier. He's still only 20. I think he's 22 now, maybe 21. So he's probably just starting 22. To fill out. His body's maturing. He might be a bit of a smoky to sub in at lock for that if they are looking to go down that ball playing sort of ball playing lock route.
Yeah, that's one that you and I have said a few times as a bit of a left field option. Yeah. I don't mind it. I don't know if they're entertaining it, but yeah, it'd be nice to see. And again, play around with a few options.
Yeah,
he's there. He's there, and he can be quite versatile. I believe he can be versatile. You're the same. He's got a passing game. He's used to tackling in the middle, so it's not the worst option. If you can get him up to about 95 keg, yeah, wouldn't be a bad a bad idea.
Well, they've named him and TDS. It's just interesting that they named two hookers on the extended bench. You know, it's not necessarily what always happens because, it's usually one subs out, the other one subs in for the rest of the game to get that game time. So it could happen.
Yeah. And you could even see Simpkin come on and then maybe TDS comes on and then he shifts into the lock like you're talking about.
Yeah.
It wasn't that long ago that there was a phase, you recall, they did it in Origin a bit where they had a couple of halves come on and play in lock position. At one stage, Jerry Evans came pushed into the lock position as sort of a rover.
Yeah, Kalen Ponga.
Ponga played lock effectively. Yeah. I think they had Cronk at one point played a bit of lock too. It was a bit of a prelude to the Yo style of lock, I guess. That fellow to hold up and present options in the middle.
Yeah, it sort of bled into the Glenn Stewart era that bled into the Yo era. So,
yeah, well, Glenn Stewart was a similar sort of period, wasn't it? If not even a little bit earlier. I guess he's somebody, I agree. He's somebody who probably doesn't get the credit that he probably deserves, does he?
Well, he had a Clive Churchill, so he gets a little bit of credit.
I mean, talking about the lock thing, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
I might just glaze over the rest of the squad there, mate. We have mentioned them. And so, there's a lot of names there to keep an eye on. We've got several development players in there and several training trialists. And then we've got another one there, Nav Willett, we've mentioned before, who was in the top 30. So a lot of young kids primarily and a couple of toilers in the New South Wales Cup scene. So, it should be interesting to watch there on the weekend, mate. I just wanted to, before we move on, just run through a couple of the key exclusions around some of these players.
Can we just go back to I just want to talk really quick because you know these names a fair bit better than I do in terms of the development of the youngers. I've actually never heard of this Ruben Porter.
Ruben Porter's a training trialist. Did he come from Wyong Roos, maybe?
Yep.
Let's have a look. Let's have a quick look in the interest of being accurate. Ruben Porter.
Comes up with Ruben Cotter.
He came from the Bears.
North Sydney Bears. He's in the Sydney Roosters sort of.
However, I will say he made his debut for the Wyong Roos, so it wasn't all lost.
It wasn't all lost. So what position does he play?
I think he is a second rower, perhaps. Okay. Yes, he's a second rower.
There you go. Yep, never heard of him. So that's an interesting one.
Yeah. Louis Toso, I think, is in the same vein. I think he came from the Dragons, younger system. And Vaihu played for us last year. I was quite impressed by Vaihu, actually. I think he's a real goer. He played a bit of centre. Yep. He played on the bench, I think, a little. And then he played some second row edge as well. He's not the biggest dude, but, he goes hard. I'm a fan of Sione.
I'm just keen to see Willett as well. I want to see Willett get in there.
Yeah. Willett needs a bit of meat on his bones, but, he's an exciting prospect, most definitely, mate, as well. So I was just going to go through some of the key exclusions, let's call them, from the top 30 squad that aren't playing but are over there. I think the whole extended squad travelled, which was good to see. But that's Alamalo, Toa, Naden, Latu, Twally, Bateman, Tumith, Matamua. I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head. But, there's quite a few names in there. Now, obviously, we mentioned Latu is serving that suspension that he suffered in the World Cup. I think it was a dangerous tackle. I think it was a grade 2 dangerous tackle. And, I'm pulling that out of my backside if I'm correct. But he got the one game. And the Tigers appealed to have it served during trials. And it was graciously by the overlords from the NRL approved. So, Latu serving that this week makes him eligible to play next week, which is fantastic. The other side would have been if he wasn't allowed to do it in trials, obviously Matey's not available for selection round 2. And, if he was the best performer and won that jersey, that kind of stinks, doesn't it? Because you have to put someone else in. But luckily we're not there. Now, in terms of the others, we mentioned Bateman's recovering from an ankle injury. Now, I'm not actually sure about the others. So I haven't heard anything on Alamalo, Toa, Naden, Twally, Tumith or Matamua and the reasons why they're not playing. So have you got anything on those lads?
No, I follow a few of them on Insta. Twally hasn't mentioned anything about even travelling with them, so I don't think Twal's over there. Tumith, I'm quite surprised Tumith didn't get a run. It definitely seems like that's an opportunity for Toomuth to get a little bit of game time, especially
I
considering.
also missed Olam, sorry, as well. Obviously,
Olam's still injured, so we know that.
he's still injured. Yeah,
Still getting right. I actually forgot about Olamalo, so I'm pretty. I would have loved to have seen him have a bit of a crack. Maybe it's just more of getting him ready from a rugby league perspective, given he's been union for so long, forever. So maybe just giving him a little bit more time and training about how those roles work. Yeah, even though outside backs for both codes are pretty similar. So, but for the rest, no idea. No idea why not. Toa, I think Toa probably because it's likely he's going to get first crack at Santa regardless. I think he earned that right last year.
certainly heavily in the conversation, isn't he?
Yeah. Naden, I thought Naden was fit and firing, so I have no idea. Maybe he's still on the road to recovery. Don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think we were both surprised by how strong the side was that they named this week. However, obviously next week, generally speaking, trials week 2, we tend to find a relatively close to opening round type of squad or side picks, mate, don't we? So whatever answers we're not getting this week, I guess we'll probably, barring injury, have the opportunity to hopefully get them next week.
Yeah. Well, that's...
Is there anybody on that list that you expect to force their way into the 17 come round 2? I'll do the same with the actual trial squad. We'll go back to them in a moment. Obviously, Twally is one, and Toa you mentioned.
I think they're probably from the list. Oh, and Olam, Bateman, the ones that aren't injured.
Yeah.
I think if we go for the ones that aren't injured, so we're both certain that, we're 100% certain that Bateman and Olam, if fit and firing, will be selected for round 2.
Yep.
But yeah, Toa will definitely, I think, push for selection pretty heavily. I think 12's been a mainstay for as long as I can remember. So,
yeah.
But the other ones, Toomuth, probably not. Alamalo, probably not. Who else did you have on there? I think that was it, wasn't it?
Matamua was another one as well.
He was in my starting side, so
yeah,
I'm starting to.
From everything we've read so far, it's hard to say, but he doesn't seem naively from our end to be in the discussion, at least at the moment. I haven't heard a lot of updates or much on him at all. He doesn't seem to be front and centre throwing passes in the middle in training photos or anything. So, yeah, I guess we're all speculating at this stage, but it'd be interesting to see what comes of that, mate. You've got the original squad, and we'll move on from this in a moment after I ask the same question. But if we go through that starting 17, who do you expect? I'll just do a yes or no. Do you expect or have a very high chance of being there come round 2? So do I need to say Buller?
No. Oh,
Staines?
yes. You don't need to say Buller. Yes, he'll be there.
Yes, he'll be there. Gotcha. Staines?
Yes.
Fatape?
Unlikely.
Casey?
No.
He can't. He's training trialist, so he actually can't. Not till round 10. Tupou?
Yes.
Bud?
Yes.
Caesar?
Yes.
Steph?
Yes.
Happy?
No. Yes.
They actually, fun fact, they actually printed out all the team sheets for the whole year ahead of time, blank to be filled in each week, but they actually printed Appy's name in there for all the games.
There's no real point in actually ever changing it because waste of ink.
Yeah, exactly. Damien Cook's a way better hooker for New South Wales as well.
Yeah, but yeah. Keep Appy fresh for us.
So, Clemmer, yes. Papali'i?
Yes.
Yep. AJ?
Possibly.
I say yes. I think he's in the 17. I think he'll be in the 17 as the versatile.
I didn't have him in my 17, so I'm saying possibly.
Okay. Way to sit on the fence, champion. Seyfarth?
No.
So you don't think Seyfarth will be in the 17?
I don't think he'll push in the 17. No, I think he'll always be number 18.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, he's a very 18 or 19 type of player, isn't he?
He is. Can definitely help out when he needs to, but he's not a superstar to start.
So a big one, Galvin.
No.
Yeah. Folletti, no. Pollack.
No. Yes.
Samuel Fainu.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm with you. Kit,
Yes.
you think you'll be in the 17?
I think it'll be in the
Okay.
17.
I think last week we picked ours. Obviously, we had very young sides because we were excited about some of them. I don't think he will. I think he'll be in the extended squad.
I think
Right,
he'll.
smack
I think
bang
he'll
from
put
the
his way
beginning.
in.
Yeah, but I don't see him forcing his way into the actual side. I think
Well,
they're going to play.
who would you envision being lock then? And this is again, we're talking about what you think they will choose, not what you want to choose. Who do you think they'll pick at lock then?
Polo or Seafath.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're going to play safe option, like I was saying before, in terms of how they want to approach this season. I think that's the way that they will go. Yeah, and I think they've. When I say I think if I were them, I would be wary. I'm not trying to think like them from a conservative point of view. I would be wary of the youth of the side, the fact there's a shitload of new combinations, and not wanting to leave us too overexposed by having a 19-year-old play starting lock in the NRL in his second NRL game.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So that's my reasoning behind.
That makes sense.
The only other two probably worth mentioning. I mean, you mentioned Lob in yours. Do you see him forcing his way into the 17?
Again, that was what I wanted.
Yep,
but I can't
cool.
see him forcing his way in.
The only other two then, Jake Simpkin.
No.
And Talon.
No.
Okay, so you believe that they'll go with Appy for 80 to start the season?
I think that it's highly likely they will. I think that if they do give him a break, they'll give him a little bit of a break. And so, somebody, maybe a Bateman will push in there, or somebody will push in there just to fill, maybe a Bud, like you mentioned before, push in there to give Appy a breather. But I think he'll play the 80.
Yep. Okay. On that note, do you think we're going to run with a utility of any description?
Do I think that they will choose to run a utility?
Yeah, talking about what you think they'll do now.
Yes, I think they will. I think, it wouldn't surprise me. And again, I wasn't when you mentioned Kapoa. I said possibly. I didn't say yes. I think that's definitely something to think about in terms of using him as that utility value. I think he's probably got that bit of a background to be able to do that. So I think they will. Who they use, I'm not sure. Couldn't put my finger on it just yet.
Yeah. Okay. Not a worry. All right, mate. So one other thing we just want to talk about, and how could you not have noticed this week? Lockie Galvin and his manager Isaac Moses. I shouldn't lump Lockie in with this, but fair dinkum. If you've ever seen somebody go on an advertising campaign to the stars, it's what Moses has been spouting to all his best mates in the media this week. I'm losing fingers to count the amount of articles about Lockie Galvin this week. Like, exciting kid, amazing prospect, but what's going on?
Oh, mate, it's somebody's pushing up that dollar value. Somebody's trying to make sure that they take notice, and that very much, excuse me, I tried to hold that back, but I couldn't.
Bless you.
And obviously make sure that, the higher ups of the Tigers understand that this kid is something of the future. And that's not disputing, he very well could be, but again, he's 18 years old. So I think putting that much pressure on a kid is very dangerous. I think that can definitely hamper their development, hamper what they feel they can actually achieve. And I don't have enough fingers and toes to actually, list the amount of juniors that have been hyped and just died because of all the attention they got. So it's dangerous.
Well, for a myriad of reasons, right? But like you said, it happens so often where these young players who do really well at the schoolboy level get talked up immensely. And, we've heard everything positive out of Galvin over the off-season, and I am not in any way saying that none of that is true. I genuinely believe, and were talking about this bloke 2.5, 3 years ago almost, when we heard whispers of his name on the wind. But, we're not just new to the party in understanding how much of a quality footballer he can be. But, I think you're playing with fire when you do that. And considering we are the club who have just come off the longest litmus test of how this can impact a player and their development. And in Luke Brooks, obviously, touted as the next Andrew Johns. It's very surprising, but it doesn't seem to be coming from the club, insofar as the club is not putting out excessive amounts of Lachlan Galvin content.
No.
What they have do is they have mentioned that he's definitely in the running, and we've spoken before about how you'd have to be blind Freddie to not see that was clearly a bit of a kick up the butt to all of his halves, to be able to put them all on notice and say, not only to the other halves themselves to say, Lockie's making you sit up and take notice, but also to Lachlan himself to go, you've put in a big off-season, keep going because you are a chance. So, yeah, mate, I don't like to see it. I love hearing stories about our juniors, but it's been a bit silly this week.
It has, and it's been like, we talk about last year, there was a little bit of news about TDS, the heir apprentice to Appy, the next big thing coming through, but that's kind of where it stopped. It was like, this is this kid and he's really good, basically. With this week is like, this is Lockie Galvin. Para let him go. How could they let him go? He wanted to play for Para, but now he's going to debut for the Tigers. Could be anything, this kid. Rah. I'm like, I think I literally counted 3 or 4 different articles that touted him as such an amazing player. I mean, how does a young kid, like literally 18 years old, 20 years younger than us, how does he go about and not let that get to him? You can't, like, as much as social media impacts people's lives, it's going to affect him. And that's the thing, like, these journalists, like, I've rambled on about journalists and how much I despise them copious amounts of times on this pod. So I don't need to do it again. But it actually annoyed me. Like, we shared one of the articles on the podcast, and, we were on the podcast Facebook page, and, got a bit of traction. People understood it. People liked it. But then after that, it was about 3 or 4 others popped up. I was like, yeah, nah, don't do this.
Yeah, I know. It's a worry. It'll die down. I'm sure it will. It just seems to be the name on everybody's lips at the moment, at least in our neck of the woods. So yeah, it's in a way, having the football begin this week is good time, because we can stop hearing the soft marshmallow stories about Lockie Galvin and how great he's going to be before he's even pulled on a jersey for us. Hopefully that's enough. Hopefully that's the end of it, until he does start braining them, which I am entirely of the belief that if given enough time, Galvin is going to be a fantastic player. But we need to allow that to play its course.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we get to see a bit of it on the weekend, and which is exciting as well.
Yeah, I can't wait. I cannot wait. It's been... Actually, it hasn't felt that long, if I'm being honest. Usually the off-season feels a lot longer, but I guess with all the news that's been going on with the Tigers over the off-season, it hasn't really felt like it's been dragged on that long. But to see some Tigers jerseys pulled on, to see some action this weekend is going to be phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. So, alrighty, let's have a look at the game. So the game is going to be played, excuse me, at 1 p.m. At 1 p.m. daylight savings time. So it's going to be, it's going to be 1 p.m. Queensland time, our time. And it's going to be 2 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. Obviously, it's over in Christchurch in New Zealand, so the game is going to be a little bit earlier in the day for us, but beautiful. February 18th, Sunday.
Yep.
Spend the morning with the family, with the kids, have a coffee and some pancakes or bacon and eggs, mate. Maybe go for a little dip in the pool.
You're saying all the right words. You're saying all the right words.
I'm painting a picture, my friend. I'm painting a scene. Okay, we're only 5 days away. All right, so... No, mate, it's going to be very...
Not too much coffee for you in the morning, mate. You'll get too jittery.
I beg your pardon?
Not too much coffee in the morning for you on Sunday. You'll be too jittery.
Mate, good news. There's only 2 sleeps till the game. If you're excited enough.
Right. Ah, gotcha.
You
That took me way too long to get.
So, ladies and gents, you can find that game on KO. I don't believe that it's on free-to-air. So, if you want to watch that game...
It's also on Fox Sports.
Yeah, Fox Sports via KO. So that's where you can watch that game live and in HD, mate. I'm very excited. If anybody else can't tell, Toby is very excited as well. Mate, do you want to touch on anything else before we wrap up this
We haven't
show?
done a bold prediction yet.
I'm so rusty. Of course we haven't. We haven't had a game since bloody September.
No. We'll just make this quick. What's your bold prediction?
My bold prediction. Well, it can't be that quick because you called me completely off guard.
Well, we talked about it. What are you doing?
Fair enough. We did too. Tell you what, I'm going to double down. If they do man of the match, let's do a bold prediction and then a man of the match prediction.
Okay, done.
My prediction is Fa'atape is going to carve up in centres, but he's also going to let in a try or two. I think he's going to show a bit of both.
Yep.
Yeah, and when I say carve up, he'll score 1 or 2 and set up 1 or 2. I think he'll just be an absolute handful.
Yeah,
and
man of the match?
My man of the match is going to be Bud Sullivan.
Yeah, see, my bold prediction is Bud Sullivan to have an absolute cracker of a game. Really put his hand up to ensure that Latu and Galvin stay in New South Wales Cup for a bit. I think he's going to have an absolute cracker. For my man of the match, I'm just going to go with our captain. I think Appy's just going to lead by example as always. Like I said, I think he'll play a bit more than you think he will, and he'll set the tone. I think we'll probably dominate in the first half, and I think that when all of them go off at half time, we'll probably see the Warriors come back a bit. So,
yeah, mate, it's a safe bet. He's definitely in that $1.20 range, I think.
I'd say so.
Yeah. I think, mate, that's probably the show then. What do you say?
Yeah, I think we've been going for well over an hour. People probably sick listening to us, so might call it a day.
They need that week's break between episodes. Ladies and gents, if you're new to the show, you'll find us on Facebook, find us on Spotify, you find us on YouTube, you find us on Instagram now as well, as a few people have found us this week. So as we slowly sort of put our feelers out, we're trying to get ourselves a little bit more accessible, so that people can find us a little bit easier. We're still working on the Apple Podcasts, though. So the podcast
so
each week.
I'm going to call Best on Ground Digital.
We'll get there. We're working on it. Oh, I know. Where are they? Best on Ground?
Yeah.
Pull your fingers out.
Put my feelers out. I'll give them a call, see if they can help us with it. Because I've been trying to look at it and it's just frustrating.
2 shows that we mention every single week do it as well as us. Westlife Podcast. Love the boys over there. Can't forget to mention Kelly as well, who does wonderful work through the ambush and does the West Tigers podcast, WNRL version with Gary a little bit later when that kicks off. They did that last year to great acclaim. We also have Westlife Podcast, whose opening show, I believe, was a couple of nights ago. So well done to those lads for doing that. Get on over and follow those 2 shows. They do fantastic work, almost as good as us. I'm kidding. Tongue in cheek, of course. A special thanks to our sponsor once more, Best on Ground Digital, the digital marketing agency that looks after the little guys, bestongrounddigital.com. You will not find better marketers digitally. Bestongrounddigital.com. Fantastic fellas. Get around them. My friend, episode 3 in the books. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was a good one, actually. I thought we were... I say it all the time. I didn't think we had enough material to really keep pushing the hour mark that we like to try to get to, but you and I can just talk underwater when it comes to the Tigers, can't we?
It's a big problem in many contexts, not on this one. But of course, folks, if you want to comment, give us a bit of feedback. Hey, Zac, tone it down a little bit. Toby, pull back the coaching from the 1960s rants, let us know. YouTube comments, hop on Facebook, let us know, give us the feedback. We love it. Thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in, particularly if you're new. Tell your mates, tell the local pigeons, tell your dog, tell whoever you like. If they're interested in Tigers information, if they're interested in Tigers media, and they're interested in listening to 2 blokes have a yarn about the West Tigers, find their way over to the Tiger Town podcast, where you find Zac and Toby. Mate, there's only one thing left to do. We do it every single week. Thanks for listening, everybody, and go the mighty West Tigers.
Up the Tigers.